Hey guys, Tony's right. Okay, so I am kind of on a roll with reading, and it's a thing. It's becoming a thing because I don't read. I'm gonna be real. I don't read that much, and I'm reading a lot more, and that's exciting for me. So this is like going to be the books that I read over the last week. I read more than usual because I read 3 in 1 day. Books of like poetry and stuff like that, like not a novel, not a 300-page novel, not 300-page novels, but I read 3 books in a day and then like another book, so 4 books in a week, because I was proctoring in the exams on those 2 days, and so I needed to read or do something while these kids would like fucking like doing their exams. So I read because it's like I don't want to be on my laptop making shit and then like sound messes up and they can hear it and they getting frustrated. So I just chose like an activity that was like the most quiet, and reading is like the most quiet. Except if you be like, oh my god, what happened? Or something like that. But I'm not a reader that's like that. I'm not that expressive. I'm kind of like, or something like that. If I'm alone. If I know I'm in the crowd, I gotta be quiet, I'll be quiet. At home, I'm loud and I'll be singing. It'd be like 3 o'clock in the morning. It'd be like, I know my next door, like, neighbor, because we're semi-detached. And so I know if she can hear me, she's probably like, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. It's 3 a.m. and you cannot sing. But anyway, so I was really excited. I was like telling people, I was like, I read 3 books today, and all that kind of stuff. So I'll kind of like show you the books. It was 3 books of poetry and 1 that was more memoir, and like the memoir one is from someone who graduated from the program. So you know who you are. So yeah, I'm gonna do like a mini review of 2 of the 3 poetry books because I have to write a review for the 3rd one. But I'll kind of like give my initial impressions. So the first one is Television Fathers by Sylvia Jones. I was gonna say James Jones. I gotta write a review for this one, so I'm not gonna give like a review in here because I want to write it out. So essentially, yeah, I enjoyed it. I felt like I'm gonna have to read over the 2nd and the 3rd time, because it's like, like you be reading and you be like, do I get this? Do I get what's happening here? I also don't get a lot of references, and it's just because I don't watch a lot of movies or watch a lot of TV shows, so my references for things is off or like just missing because I have no reference for it, right? Like if someone makes a Twilight Zone reference, I'm not going to pick up on it because I never watched the Twilight Zone. Like I know what it is, but I don't know who like, it's like I kind of vaguely know who like produced it, who wrote it, like its cultural significance, but like in terms of being like an active participant or an active like observer of something or an active researcher of something, no. So like my cultural like awareness of stuff is like pretty low. Not that I'm not interested in stuff, but it's just like I grew up pretty sheltered, and so that has informed my cultural reference points. And so the cultural reference points I find that a lot of people may not have, just because I grew up so sheltered. So yeah. So I'm coming from like a sheltered Baptist where we still call music secular, and I still call music secular. I'll sing music, but like I really mean like secular music because I grew up listening to a lot of like just like gospel and like going to church and singing hymns. We weren't like 7 days a week we were there. It was just, that's the music I grew up on. And then as I started to choose my own music, it was also like not solely what was like being around me. Like I went to like a, not inner city, it's a city school, but not like inner city, like in the way that we think. It's like it had elements of that, but it was still calm enough It wasn't like I'm in middle school and like 6 people were pregnant and like 12 people have dropped out in a year or some shit like that. Like, it was pretty standard, but it was still like a city school, you know? So my references from that time period, I'm kind of like, based on my experience, felt so removed from the people that were there. And that informs how I was in high school as a person and how I was as a young adult from 18 until graduation, so like 21. And it slowly has faded away. I've kind of gotten more into like what people are doing. I was like all in my own little world, like, for the most part. So in many ways, it's not like this has hella like references to like TV shows and stuff like that, but I kind of feel like there's an observance of certain cultural things that like I personally don't get. And something really interesting to me is and I'm going to mention this in the review, is the titling versus the actual poetry, and like the compare and contrast with that, the impression I get of a title versus the impression that I get of the poem. And I feel like this book is a good exercise in intentionality of titling or lack thereof. And I'm not saying that like, oh, like she was like very slack about it. It's just like, or lack thereof, like literally, like it may be you just have this fucking title on there and then it has nothing to do with it. And in doing that, you're subverting the expectation that someone has of what the title is supposed to be, you know? Like, and that in itself could be intentional. So yeah, this one, I read this. The second one I read is Poetry East. And so this is an old, one, because it's spring 2024, which I was not in a good emotional space because my grandmother died in winter 2024, and then by spring 2024, I guess I fucking bought this. I don't remember. I could have sworn I bought this earlier than spring 2024, but whatever. This is ekphrastic poetry, and it's different poets who are considering. I think it's all Claude Monet's work. So each poem references some artwork that Monet has created, and then they have actual pictures of Monet's, which I was kind of questioning. I'm like, some of these pictures, the way his paint style is very, you know, I think it's what impressionistic. But I also was like, I felt like some of this shit was like heavily pixelated, and I was like, girl, like I need y'all to do a little bit better. I mean, he didn't give me much to work for on with this, cause homeboy like definitely was doing all like the squiggly, you know. It wasn't the most clear thing anyway, but I enjoyed this because I like ekphrastic poetry. I like the details that people pick up on in ekphrastic poetry, because sometimes like people pick the most randomest details. Like, so like this is an example I'm going to give you based on this one. So you see how there's a figure and whatever, this little boat thing that's going on. Somebody may do a poem about that, right? But when I say it's something unexpected, it could be about just the doors that are on this thing. If you're going to focus on things that are in the foreground, so to speak, it could be there's a left corner over here and the dark branches over here. It could be the idea of reflection in the water, or like the idea of movement in the water or moving through water. So ekphrastic poetry doesn't necessarily have to capture and be like, the lady in the blue dress, she made me feel like this is the poem. The lady in the blue dress made me feel sad because blue is a sad color and it's cold. It could be like the lady in the blue dress could be a metaphor for something. You could be like standing in that place now. It's in the portrait. Like all these things could be happening. And so ekphrastic poetry doesn't have to be about like the figure in the poem or the figure in the drawing or whatever, the figure in the painting, the figure in the photograph, whatever. It could be like the idea of the observers, the perspective of the observer. It could be from the perspective of the object within it, right? If it's like an inanimate object, right? You may decide to choose to write a poem about the water instead of the person, the tree instead of the person, like I said, the doors instead of the person. Even the idea of the title, you may want to play with that idea of what it means in relation, you know, stuff like that. So I like ekphrastic poetry because you can go in many directions and you don't have to stay with like the more figurative, representational elements in there. You can kind of like veer off a little bit. And I actually wrote a lesson plan about ekphrastic poetry. So I'm going to maybe do something with that. Yeah. But some of the more other artwork. I like this. So this book was, I feel like it was not ultra easy, but it wasn't like the hardest because like some of the pages legit are like pages of art. So you can get through it a little bit quicker. I enjoyed some of the poetry. I enjoyed ekphrastic poetry. Some of it, I think it's really because the artist itself is one of those artists that's like considered someone, I don't know if he's considered like a classical master. I don't think that, but like a master in some way. He's definitely one of the people we talk about within art. And so especially a part of like art movements, right? Like this is a pretty well-known person within, I'm assuming it's Impressionism. I don't know, I don't fucking care either. So I'm so sorry. But yeah, so Poetry East, I'll read it what it's about. What they're on is an international magazine of poetry translations, criticisms, interviews, and art. Poetry East is an independent magazine affiliate with DePaul University, whose support is gratefully acknowledged. And so yeah. So yeah, I liked it. It's been on my shelf for like a long motherfucking time. And so yeah. Roger Camps, Still Life with Fountain, I really enjoyed. And that's another thing about ekphrastic poetry, like you can write a poem and it may not be about the photo that's right next to it, but they may pair them together for you to form connections between the two and to also keep your eye moving across the pages and turning and all that kind of stuff. Like, you know, that's a way of doing it. Oh my god, let me change the... There we go. It got better. Okay. And so yeah, I really like that one. William Virgil Davis's A Cart on the Snowy Road at Honfleur, and liked that one. Matthew Kirby's Bouquet of Sunflowers. Oh yeah, Robert Fillman's Turkeys. This was pretty interesting. So like if you ever get this book, like just look into some of those people, because like they're a thing. They're a vibe. But yeah. Oh, and Nancy Bodkin, A Water Lily Speaks. Those are the ones that kind of stood out a little bit to me. So yeah. So there's that. The last one of poetry is Some Are Always Hungry by Ji Hyun Yoon. And so I read this one, finished it like later on that day. So I proctored and did 2 full books while I was proctoring right in that time while they were taking their exams, and me like just having to like look around and make sure they weren't cheating with a girl. I don't know. But I didn't finish this before I finished for the day, but I went to Barnes and Noble later and finished it. And so this one is about like immigration from a place, the idea of place, the idea of food linking you to place, culture identity. I think the idea of cultural identity when you don't have the skill set to recreate things via cooking or sewing or language or whatever. Familial patterns, familial trauma, particularly for like women, lineage, matriarchy, the menstruating body, the body dealing with, I'm assuming would be like something like abortion. I believe it is like mentioned in here, so trigger if you don't like those themes and topics, this is not the book for you. Sexual violence, again, trigger if you like feel like that's a little bit too much. I feel like you're not going to want to read this book because it does touch on that, and it is like dispersed throughout. So it does talk about like heavier topics as it relates to food. So I enjoyed this one. I think out of the three, I enjoyed Television Fathers the most. And then these two were kind of good, but I feel like this one, it's not that it's heavy. It's not a heavy topic. They're not heavy topics to me where I felt like I didn't want to read because I was triggered or anything like that. I just felt like it wasn't particularly like the vein of poetry that I would read if I were to get inspired about my own writing to write. Like, yeah, because I have topics that I like to write about, and I feel like this one doesn't fall in line with that, and so I would be less inclined to like look at it as like an inspiration. It's not that it's a bad read, it's just I'm reading it to read it, and then I'll probably move on. I may like never read it again, or if I read it again, it'll be like a minute or two. Yeah, I think someone who writes a lot about identity, but like identity through like place, geography, which is, these are things that I'm interested in, but space, place, geography, food, immigration is a big one. War is a big one, and I feel like, again, my own experiences, they overlap, but they don't. But then my writing topics I'm interested in don't quite overlap with what this book is offering for me, right? Because somebody they may come from somewhere where there's war or language or something dealing with like that resonates with them. It just doesn't resonate with me, really. Anyway, so there's that. So those are the three. Like I said my opinions on this. So anyway, the last one is someone who just left the program I went to, and it's Shay. So, Impressions of My Father, Get My Side Happy. Yeah, so this is memoir, and it's broken up into different like books. It's jumping through time. It is, like I said, more of a memoir, but it does have some poetic elements. And I was actually quite surprised by the formatting, because I was like, this book is longer than what the teacher said it was supposed to be. So but that also accounts for like format, and I think this had a lot of formatting that made me think about like this. It's really well designed, actually. Like, so we're responsible for designing this like book, and I like that. So I like the choices that were taken, and actually the being broken up how it is makes it a lot more readable, and it gives the book a lot of breath. Like it gives it a lot of space to breathe, and I don't feel like I'm slogging through reading, which is why I was able to complete it within the 3-hour period along with the other book. Because I'd like told them, they were like, damn, you read fast. And I was like, yeah. But it's just, I was able to read through it. And then it was also interesting to me because this book does cover topics, the more complicated relationships that more align and resonate with me. And so, yeah, like definitely. And then also I have kind of like homework to kind of tell them about like the poetry stuff that they incorporated, because it feels more like hybrid in many ways. And so yeah, like it's interesting. It's interesting, but I feel like people should read it. But I know this probably isn't going to be available because this is meant to be a longer work. So when they finish it and go through and make it its full-fledged self, which I feel like this would be fine, and this could serve as like a diptyque or a companion. This could have a companion book instead of it being a larger work. It just could be one of two or three or whatever type things. And that way this doesn't have to, well, it doesn't go to waste, but I feel like it can be complete on its own. So yeah, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed going through time. It's not something that I particularly do because I have a hella faulty memory, so there's just blocks of time in my life where I really don't remember shit. So I could never write this. But yeah, like being broken up into different areas and stuff like that. Yeah. So I would say check it out, but like I don't know how comfortable they're gonna be with like checking it out. Anyway, so this is that. Anyway, those are the four. I'm gonna go into some more books that I have for to be read. Thank you for watching this longer video, but thank you for watching. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.